Alright guys, welcome back to the Drone Camps channel. I'm Justin Davis. Thanks for joining me today. I have something new from HolyBro. These guys are super awesome. This is a new quad by them. It's called the Shuriken X1, and it's in between the size that they've already released, the 180 and the 250. So this is a 200 class racer, and this one has a lot to bring to the table. First of all, you have an X-frame. This is very tight turning and very responsive quad. X-frames fly a lot different than those traditional H's that we've been flying for the past few years. They turn on a dime. The X-frames are really nice, and a lot of guys really win a lot of races with X-frames. So let's take a look at the way this flies. Now, out of the box, you can see right away we have Minim OSD on here, which is great. The 180 they released didn't have OSD on there. The other one they did, the 250, the Shuriken 250, does have OSD. So you can check out your battery volts at the bottom left. You'll see that when I'm punching the throttle, it goes all the way down to 13, and I get low voltage warning on the bottom of the screen. I have my current amperage draw right there at 17, 14, 15. Over on the bottom right, I have my flight time up in the air, or on, armed for 1 minute 33 seconds there. Up at the top left, I have the mode, the current mode that I'm in. And the cool thing about Minim OSD is that you can go in there and change a lot of these settings. You can add your pilot name, so it's very customizable. A lot of guys have been using this for years, so it's nice to see this on an all-in-one ready to fly quad. Pretty much bind up with your radio and you're ready to go. You can choose from Spectrum, I believe Futuba, or FrSky. So pretty cool. I have an FrSky Tyrannus Plus, and it came with the receiver, and I bound it up in a few minutes. And I went into Betaflight. I did a few things for my modes. I set up my modes, and I'll show you a little bit about that here in a few minutes. But right away, this is something like I would have built. It would have taken me about a month to get something built and tuned to fly like this. This one does right out of the box. So I barely had to do anything except set up my modes and bind my receiver and charge up a battery and fly, which is amazing. The day that I flew was extremely cold, so I'm shivering on the ground flying. It was about 36 degrees, and it was super windy. There's a kind of a storm approaching, so it flew really nimble right out of the box, handles a lot of wind, and it feels like it corners and turns on a dime. So on the course, this is going to be a really good quad, especially if you're a new guy. This is your first quad. This would be amazing for your first quad. I would have dreamed of having a quad like this out of the box a few years ago. It was impossible. So I'm about to come over in just a minute here and land, but let's go back into the studio real quick. Let's take a closer look at the Shuriken X1. Nice landing. Okay, now we're back in the studio. We can take a closer look at the HolyBro Shuriken X1. Now, what makes this one stand out from the other quads out there on the market? Mainly, the biggest thing is that you didn't have to build anything, number one. If you're a new guy getting into this, you just have to have your radio, whichever radio you choose, whether it be Futuba, Spectrum, or FrSky, Tyrannus Plus. Choose your receiver when you make the order for your X1, and you can bind it up to your radio. So that's great, because all you have to do is put the props on, set up your modes in Betaflight on your Mac or PC, and charge up your battery. You're going to need a battery to come along with it. You get like a 1300 4S battery, order that separately, and you're good to go. So let's talk about what comes along with it first, and then we'll take a closer look at the X1 itself. Now, first is first, I always love to get extra props with my kits, and this one came with some Mr. Steele props. You get an extra set of HQs. These are 50/40s. Out in the field, they were a little bit brittle, and I did actually break one all the way around, but it was 36 degrees outside and super cold, so this plastic's going to be a little brittle, but during the summer months, it would likely just bend a little bit. But with the super cold air we had today, it was quite a challenge out there. So you can expect some things to fail. But otherwise, you also get a session mount, which is really nice. It feels like a 3D printed style, some kind of a different material, sort of spongy, soft material that you can mount right to the top of the quad. And it's made to fit on there just perfect. You probably don't need to add any foam in between this. And you can run your strap horizontally across there and underneath and put your session on there. I don't have a session, so this won't come in use for me, but maybe maybe later when I get one. You also get some extra cables here for hooking up a different style receiver. If you have PWM receiver and need to plug in all these different cables, you can do that. Your battery strap here, you get an extra one. One also comes on the bottom of the frame with a nice carbon piece to go over top of your battery to protect it from the ground when you do have a kind of a hard little landing. Now the strap that they have on here is wider than most of the straps that I've seen. So if you look at this one, this is probably going to be your camera strap. It's a little thinner. So this will be for mounting your GoPro session. But you have everything on this quad. It's pretty amazing. You also get a little card that tells you your bands and channels here. You can do race bands, IRC, band E, B, and A. And you can do 8 different channels on each band. So pretty slick there. They put that on a little card, business card you can put in your wallet and take out to the field. You also get some classic HolyBro stickers along with it. If you want to sticker up your quad or your radio, you have an OSD tuner here. You can plug that in and tune your OSD on your camera settings. And you get some extra zip ties along with it as well. So let's go ahead now, let's take a closer look at the quad itself. I'm gonna go ahead and pull these props off. And let's take a look at these motors, because the motors are really, really awesome on here. They're a little larger than the 2205 motors. We have a 2305 motor on here running 2600 kV. So very, very good for race spec. Okay, there you're looking at the front left motor, and it says F402 on the side, and over here on this side it says F40 2600, and that is actually a 2305 motor. You can see from the very top, these coils in there, the copper coils make a difference. When you get a motor, look at the copper coils and make sure that they're nice and tightly wound. Also that they're a nice thick gauge. Nice thick gauge is going to give you solid power. Now if you look at this motor stem here, tilt it just a little more, you can see that that motor stem is hollow. So this is kind of a new trend in the last few months. We're seeing a lot of hollow stemmed motors, and this just shaves off a few more grams per motor and gives us a little lighter flying quad. Now durability wise, that's yet to be determined. I haven't crashed these motors enough to know whether these are going to bend or get tweaked. So if they get bent just a little bit, it's not going to be an efficient motor anymore, and you're going to need to replace that stem. But you can buy new bells and new stems for most of the motors out there. So the ESCs themselves are also BLHeli 30 amp ESCs, and they are tunable in BLHeli. We also have BLHeli on the Mac for you guys as well now in the Chrome Web Store, like I showed you in one of our previous videos. Very, very nice. It does say on the specs that this handles a burst up to 42 volts. So I'm not 100% sure if the motors can handle that much. That means this could run on 5 to 6S. So I haven't tried that, and I don't know if I plan on trying it with mine, but if you guys out there in YouTube land try it, let me know if it works. Now, the wildest thing about this entire quad, and I'm going to pop the top off and show you, is this all-in-one flight board down here. If you look from the side, this is only one level, guys. This is not a stack. This is just one pancake. That's it. Everything's included on this board. Your VTX, your ESC, your PDB connections here, and your OSD, your connector back here in the very back for Betaflight, and your connector for your antenna. Now, there's a few things about this design from the top, if I show it to you from the top, that I'm not big on, and those would be the things like where this antenna sticks off the side of the PCB here. See how this sticks out from the frame a little bit? If this was over inside the frame, I think this would be a little more durable, but they did reinforce this part with an extra piece of carbon right here. So you can see there's a carbon piece that comes out here, and so you have your bottom mount here. So the stress on the antenna when it hits the ground is going to go directly to that carbon and not the PCB, which is really nice. Now, one kind of pitfall that I do see on this quad is the very back right here. This USB port sticks out from the PCB right here, and there's no carbon underneath that. So we're likely to see this USB part pop off. I mean, this is possible that you could break this off. It is kind of hidden behind the LEDs and this very back plate back here, but this could be a point that breaks off. You can see how it sticks out there from the bottom of the frame. Now over here on this side over as well, if your battery flies off, if this somehow breaks, which this is a pretty thick strap and it's coated in plastic, it might not break, but these two battery terminals right here connect to the PCB and they also hang out from the edge of the frame. So if this had extra carbon reinforcement or it was done another way, I think this could probably be a little better right here. So I'm just being, you know, kind of overly critical, but that's my job as a reviewer, so you guys can know some of the possibilities of a system failure or the frame failure. But the frame itself, I really like the way the frame looks because it is beveled carbon fiber and it's that 3K weave. So it's a really, really nice, rigid, durable carbon fiber. It's 4mm on the arms. You have, I believe it was 2.5mm this bottom plate. And then there's another plate sandwiching in between here. If you look, see, you get this really, really close. And you can see there's another plate just below the PCB. So that's also very, very nice. Now the camera on here is a Sony 1/3 Super HAD 2 CCD. It's running PAL, and I don't know if it's switchable to NTSC, but it has a ton of tilt, and it's 600 TVL, which is pretty standard. Also has a 2.5mm lens. Let's go ahead and check out this tilt. Look at this insane tilt. You can get the most tilt out of any quad I think I've ever seen. You can just look almost like straight up with this camera. It's pretty crazy. And I didn't have to tighten up the screws on the side when I flew it for my first flight. The camera stayed exactly put during my flight. So super nice camera comes along with it. Also tunable and changeable with your little cable here. Comes along with it. Okay, I took the top off for you guys so you could see this board, and this is where the Shuriken X1 gets really exciting because I've been waiting for sort of an all-in-one single stack board for quite some time, and this might look a little bit large, but it does fill every square millimeter of this bottom plate here that's just below it where it's resting on. So it's almost impossible to have everything a little closer in. You do have to have some things hanging out on the side. Like I said, these 3 points right here all hang out earlier, but it's amazing because you have everything here. You got your VTX, you have your OSD on here, you have your USB port for your Betaflight, your battery terminals over here on the right hand side for your PDB setup, and your PDB connections here for your 5-volt ground and your signal wire for your ESCs. Now what I would like to see in a future version of this would be pretty awesome. So HolyBro engineers, if you're listening, let's get an all-in-one ESC board maybe underneath this stack right here, and this will clean up the arms a little bit and bring the ESCs off the arms, because I'd like to see a nice clean arm here. But where we're at right now with the Shuriken X1, I'm not complaining at all. So very, very, very nice. Now let's take a look at the layout. You've got your front right motor here. Your number 1 motor is here, number 2, number 3, and number 4. VTX is over here on the side. You're going to have to take these rings off, and you're going to have to use a wrench and your driver to remove the bolts. You're also going to take these little stems off that are just underneath the main plate that supports the top part. Now I'll go ahead and show you some of the features on this board. This is a nice layout because you have an arrow here traditionally facing the front, and you also have a very accessible boot button over here. If you want to reflash the firmware on this HolyBro X1 board, you can do that by holding down this button right here, and it's nicely located on the edge, like I say. And over here you have a bind button, which is also easily accessible by your finger on the outside edge of the board. You don't have to take anything off to get to those 2 buttons, which is really nice. You also have extra tabs up here for PPM. If you want to hook up a PPM type receiver, you can do your own soldering there. In the very back, we have our camera out here. You have your LED out here for the powering your LEDs on the back of the quad. And over here, you have your receiver power for your 5-volt smart port, US S-bus, and your receiver binding. So you have a channel over to here. So a very nice, slick layout. Your battery, positive and and negative terminals over here. I might cover those up with maybe some kind of a liquid tape or something, so you don't have any metal to metal. If you have any metal to metal contact there, you're going to short out your entire quad. So sometimes when I have exposed terminals like that, I like to cover them up with some liquid tape. So you might want to do that. It won't hurt it. Just make sure it's dry before you power it on. Give it a couple hours for liquid tape to dry. VTX over here with your antenna stem. And that's about it, you guys. A very, very nice board, and extremely cool. So now you're looking at the back of the top of the frame, and we have a couple different things that are in this little area right here. You have programmable LEDs, and you can program those in Betaflight. You can change the colors, configurations in here to multiple different colors. You can change also warning settings, and I believe mode settings on here too. So if you flip modes, change modes, it will change the colors as well and show you the different statuses. So over here on the right hand side, the channel settings, we can change channels, very standard 1 through 8. And over here on the right, we have the frequency setting, and you'll see that change on the LED here. The display will tell you which band you're on, so it'll change band and channel status here on the LED, which is super nice. Very convenient that they put these buttons here. They're easy to access, probably the most easy accessible buttons that I've seen on one of these sort of bind and fly quads. Now these cables down bottom here, you've got your camera cable here, you've got your LED cable here, and your receiver cable here. So okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run through the Betaflight setup for you, and go ahead and connect the quad to your USB port. And so we come first, we're going to look at the setup screen here. You want to check that all your axes are correct, left, right, forward, back, as always. Go to your ports, and it's going to be set to UART3 here, and the serial RX is going to be down on UART3. UART1 should be checked. You're good there. So go down to configuration. Motor 1, 2, 3, 4. We have that set up. That's perfect. One shot 125 should be enabled. Disarm motors regardless of the value. That's fine. We'll go ahead down here. We have VBAT. That is enabled as well. That lets me know on the screen when I have low voltage. Very important. Now your receiver mode, RX serial receiver provider is going to be S-Bus, because I'm running an FrSky S-Bus X4R receiver. I have my current sensor set on, so it does battery monitoring on there. We have accelerometer on, and telemetry is on for our OSD. We have telemetry output, very important. And your LED strip is also activated here for your multicolor LED setup. Now we'll go to failsafe, and mine is always set to drop. That's what I usually do. Or you can do land if you want a minimum throttle value. You can put that to 1000. PID tuning, I did not do anything here, so if you want to pause this, these are the defaults, so probably no reason to change any of these numbers here. This is straight from the factory. Now the receiver, if you turn your receiver on, it should have enough power here to show you stick movement. Make sure your throttle's down. So now we see stick movement on here. Y'all should be left like this, right. Your pitch should go up like this when you press up, and down when you press down. Your roll left and right should also go left and right on the screen, just as you see here. My arm switch here is on auxiliary 3. My mode switch is on auxiliary 2, and my beeper is on aux 1. So if I go over to modes, I'll show you the modes we have set up here. Like I said, my aux 3 is my arm switch. So you'll see that little yellow dot move back and forth here. And make sure you put this value over here. You can slide these back and forth. When you're armed, you want to be in the yellow there, and out when you're disarmed. Air mode is going to be on auxiliary 2 all the way down to switch 3. Horizon on auxiliary 2, and angle is my first mode. And you see right down at the bottom here, I have my beeper is on aux 1 over here on this other switch all the way down. Now I'll go to the LED strip setup, and right now I have all of them turned off because during my flight this morning I just wanted to get a quick flight in. I didn't want to attract a lot of attention, but you can turn those back on. So you just select each one here, and you can change the color. So we can switch that back on. When I press save, see that red light comes on the LED because I selected red, and I'll do save for each one. You just select each one, which color you'd like. You can mix these up as well if you want to. But I'm going to go ahead and put them all back to red here. You might have to click it twice. And we'll do that for each one. And this is pretty cool and very easy. Also up top, while I'm doing this, you can see that we have LED functions, like we can change to more color modes. You have color modifier for throttle, so if you throttle up, you'll actually get a color changing LED setup, which is kind of cool. And you can turn that on by doing that. Just turn the switch there. You can also have it blinking always if you want. I would find that a little bit annoying. Also warnings and indicator lights on your LEDs, which is also super cool. So now I have all my LEDs back on, and I can go ahead and save that setup. We also have some other functions in here you can play around with. Sensors, just have the gyroscope on there, and we can check in the CLI, the version real quick, and the version that came on the board is SP Racing Betaflight from September 11th, so it's fairly recent. So now I'll go ahead and I'll give you my final opinion on what I think about this quad and should you buy it. Okay guys, it's final opinion time, and first of all, would I buy this, and is it a good value? Would I buy it? Absolutely, I would buy this. Is it a good value? Absolutely a good value for what you're paying for this, and what you get is awesome. You get everything on this, 30 amp ESCs, you get those awesome motors on there, they're 2305s, 2600 kV, which is very, very race spec. You get a nice Sony camera, 5.8 spiral net on the side here, switchable LEDs, and you get a readout for your VTX on there with switchable bands and channels. Very, very nice setup. 30 amp ESCs are absolutely top shelf right now for what most guys are buying and putting on their quads. There's only a few tiny things that I didn't like about it. Maybe the fact that some of this PCB hangs out on the side, but they did reinforce the antenna, which is very, very good because this is going to take a lot of hits hanging up here, so you want to have a good reinforcement there. You don't want this to break off. But the downside of this might be that if you do break something on this PCB down here, that you're going to have to buy an entire new board, and you have to find out what the price for that is. It wouldn't be hard to put a new one on here. You just have to solder up the ESCs back to the board, 3 wires on each ESC, and your battery terminal here. But it might actually, maybe it comes with one of these. So would I buy it? After all that, flying it, absolutely, I would buy one of the X1s. So thanks again for watching my channel, you guys. This has been an awesome review and a lot of fun for me. This is the Shuriken X1. I'll see you on the next one.